anyway, yeah, these guys would like chase after me, and I wouldn't even try to bother them. They would just chase after me. And then one day they were in the middle of the road, and they just decided to like walk right in front of me, so I swerved, and that was stupid because then I curved my tire and popped my tire. I was like, never again am I going to swerve for these things. But anyway, they poop everywhere. They're annoying. They get on my nerves. Sorry. But anyway, that would be a population of geese. And every year we see them spring and fall back here in Indiana making a mess and chasing us and being mean. All right. Population. A group of the same species living in an environment. So, yeah. They're always together. It reminds me of the Mighty Ducks a little bit, too. Those might be ducks, but they sort of look like geese. I don't know. I just thought. Great population. Over how many? I think their population's pretty stable now. Okay, so what happens if we have populations of different species coming together and living together in an area? Then we have a what?
A community.
A community. There it is. Okay, so communities are when, like, we have something like this. What two species or population of species do we have up there?
Giraffe.
Giraffe and
Tree.
anybody know what kind of trees these are called?
Acacia.
Acacia trees
Mine.
or baobab trees.
Yeah.
Good job. I'm glad you remembered that. Yeah, they're kind of neat trees. They're kind of ugly, but nonetheless, that's the kind that are out there in the savannah.
They really ugly.
So yeah, that'd be a community because now we have a group of different species living together in an environment. Okay, so yeah, we'll revisit it later. Never mind. I was going to ask you your question, but we'll wait. All right, so then what happens if we have different species living together in an area, but then we also throw in a specific water place, or we throw in specific abiotic factors like rocks or the type of soil that's there? Then what do we have? Been saying it a lot.
Ecosystem.
Ecosystem, yep. So ecosystem is next. What kind of ecosystem is this, by the way, that I put up behind there? A swamp?
Waterfowl.
A water ecosystem of some sort? Might be a lake. It could be a wetland. Is it a watershed?
No.
What's a watershed?
Good question. All right, every year I have students who confuse wetland and watershed. Okay? Wetland, when you look at it, is like it sounds. It's land that's wet, that water is sometimes standing. And specifically in a wetland ecosystem, you're usually seeing like the same types of species. Maybe cattails and mosses and certain types of grasses. You're going to see fish and turtles and birds and certain things that always live in that wetland. A watershed. Right now, as we stand here, we are in a watershed. Is there water on the ground?
No.
No. But if I went outside and I poured some water outside, where's that water going to go?
Absorb in the ground.
It'll absorb in the ground, and then where does it go?
To the roots. Soil.
It could go to the roots of plants, and they may uptake it, but if it doesn't, where does it keep going?
Down.
Down until it reaches what?
The core.
The atmosphere.
That's that way.
The core.
It's gonna go to China.
It's going to China. Maybe eventually. No. It's going underground until it hits basically a waterway underground. Now, even if it didn't go underground and maybe it was setting on top, eventually that water would run someplace. Underground, that water would run someplace. And wherever that water runs to, okay, is usually a specific water body. So, for example, in Franklin, there is the creek that runs through downtown Franklin and like through the park area, and it's called Young's Creek. The watershed around Young's Creek is called the Young's Creek watershed. And what happens is any water that basically runs eventually into that waterway, all right, that's the watershed. Okay, so we're in a watershed. Extra credit. Okay, don't tell me out loud today, but for Monday, if you want some extra credit towards your grade, tell me what watershed are we in here at Indian Creek High School? Okay, if you can tell me that on Monday, cite your source, where you found it. Okay, tell me, I'll give you some extra credit towards your grade. Some of you could use that. People, I get it all the time. People saying, hey, how can I get some extra credit? Here you go. Here's a couple of extra credit points. All right. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that I told you the difference between a watershed and a wetland, because every year people kind of ask and they don't know, and they're not for sure. So does everybody feel confident now they know the difference between a wetland and a watershed?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. Okay. So there we go. There's how we define ecosystem. All the organisms, as well as climate, that means weather every day, soil, water, rocks, and other abiotic factors together in a given area. So I'll let you define that. So yeah, that could be, this picture could represent a lake, a pond, a wetland. It could be many things. It's kind of hard to tell exactly just because I didn't zoom out or in to let you see it a little bit more. But definitely all different types of ecosystems. Okay, could we say a log would be an ecosystem?
A what?
A log.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's got all of those things we just mentioned. That log inside the log, the climate might be different than the world around it, so to speak. The soil inside the log is different. The animals that are living there, the organisms that might grow there, okay, all different than maybe what's outside of it. So yeah, that could be an ecosystem. If we put something in a jar in here, that could be an ecosystem because it's different than the world around it. All right, speaking of different, okay, what happens if we take ecosystems that are all similar, but maybe they're in different parts of the world, but over time they're all still very similar in all of these things? What do we call that? A biome, and that's our next one, a biome.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. What kind of biome do I have up here? A
okay.
desert. How did you know it was a desert?
The ground and the mountain type thing.
You guys are describing the soil, the terrain, and I'm hearing plants. So organisms, it's soil type, all right? And I heard dry, that'd be weather, okay? And I know this is awful, so I'll read it to you. I need to put a box around this. I meant to do this the other day and I didn't. Okay, so what this says for a biome, it says major, regional, or global community of organisms with the same climate and conditions. I'll read it again. Major, regional, or global community of organisms with the same climate and conditions. So notice we're throwing in there global. So it's, you're going to have ecosystems that are very similar, but they're scattered throughout the globe. And so when we can look at all those and we can say, yeah, they have organisms that look the same, they have soil that's the same, their weather is the same, their everyday, their climate over time, year after year is the same. All right, maybe the seasons might be a little different when it happens, but it's all the same. We can say, yep, that's a biome. All right, I have one last slide and it'll finish up perfect for today. Our last slide is how do we study these ecological elements, okay? And these are the mechanisms how, and we'll talk about it next time. Okay, so, but I want you to write them down before you leave this today. The ecological methods of study are observations, experiments, and modeling. And again, we'll talk about these on Monday as we prepare for our scavenger hunt and our outdoor activities. Yeah. You guys have been awesome today. I appreciate you being candid and everybody taking good notes.